Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the part of the world that you're joining us from. My name's Anabel Dumlao. I'm partner at Excellent, and welcome. I'm very happy to welcome you to this webinar titled Purpose to Practice Innovating Your Path to Sustainability Leadership. And I am thrilled to be joined by Lisa Neuberger Fernandez, our expert partner in sustainability innovation. Lisa, welcome. I'd be
Thank you.
happy to introduce you, but I'd like to introduce you in a different way. So I want to start by asking you a question, and maybe we can use that question for you to introduce yourself to our audience. Lisa, why sustainability? How did you start in this adventure or this journey, however you want to call it?
Yes, great question. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you today and to Excellence fans and friends around the world. So, why sustainability? Well, for me, my sustainability journey goes back to the year 2007. I was newlywed in San Francisco and I was interested in bringing babies into the world. And I thought, how do I detoxify my house and make it a place that's hospitable to young life? And so I reached out to a woman in my life who was the most knowledgeable about this topic at the time. And remember that in the year 2007, that was the year that Al Gore's film An Inconvenient Truth came out, and the Bay Area was a hotbed for sustainability topics. And my friend gave me a list. Here are all the detergents and things that you want to remove and the ones that are safe to use. But here's another idea for you. What if you try to have a bigger impact on sustainability, bigger than your own family? What if you enter the Accenture, which was the company that I was working in at the time, into the Net Impact Green Challenge? And when we fast forward several months later, when we won first prize in that competition for having accelerated Accenture's green path faster over 3 months than any other corporate team, I found a new beginning for myself in creating the first sustainability consulting practice in that firm and building out the green teams that had started over this volunteer pursuit during that 3 month period of time. And I've been on the path ever since. So that was just about 20 years ago, and I'm still in sustainability. I ended up coming in-house after helping to launch the sustainability practice to help the company really drink its own champagne about sustainability. So I'm coming to you today as somebody who's led sustainability teams, global teams, at a big multinational for 15 years, and then at a small startup, an early stage clean tech company where I led sustainability a year ago. Those are the hats that I'm wearing today.
That's magnificent, Lisa. And you're just back, right, from a very significant event in this world. So tell us a bit about that.
Yes, so last week was my induction week into the Imagine Leadership Program. This is a program that was started by Paul Pullman, former CEO of Unilever, and Valerie Keller, and it's a platform for global leaders driving change, systemic change, to come together, to build skills, to be inspired, to expand networks, and to band together to create the future that we really want to see. And it was an incredible experience. I got to live in a dorm again for a week. It's been many years since I've slept in a little cot
What a
bed.
deja vu, right?
It was really fun and wonderful experience. What made the Imagine experience so unique was that it was a very experiential journey. So it wasn't a lot of textbooks and theory, although we were at Oxford and we did have access to some of the leading lights at Oxford on the front lines of tackling these topics. But we did things like learn how to channel energy in a group by going into a chapel, an ancient chapel, and conducting a choir and seeing what it feels like to move into a space where you have no skills. You're coming in without the tools or the knowledge of how to be a choir conductor, but you know how to connect with people. So what do? Do you freeze? Do you do you turn into a megalomaniac? That happened to some of our friends, and it really tests your instincts and gives you skills on how to really channel those that energy.
Well, thank you for that intro. And well, this goes to explain the title of our webinar today, right? It's about purpose to practice and innovating, that innovative practices. And really, this is a continuous journey, this path to sustainability leadership, right? So thank you, Lisa, for that. And for the audience, Lisa is a trailblazer in this field. And we're very happy to have her as an expert partner here at Excellent. And she brings this domain expertise in a very, very concrete way. So Lisa, from your experience, from this wealth of experience and the path you've already kind of walked, right? What are the most significant challenges, that people, for instance, who are in the audience, who work at organizations, what challenges do they face when they want to do more about sustainability commitments, than just declare them? What do they face? What are the barriers or challenges that they face moving from those sustainability commitments to action, right? Action that's measurable in your experience.
Yes, really important question here. How do we challenge the change barriers? So first of all, when you are a sustainability leader in a large corporate or even a small corporate, your job is really to be a change maker, to drive change and to influence. You rarely have a large, 1,000-person team. You often have a small, powerful team, and then you need to influence across the entire organization. So driving change is your friend. Having skills, knowing how to drive change is your friend. And one of the biggest challenges that you always come up with are resistance to change. And this is a very natural phenomenon in any organization, in any new context. And so being able to drive that change through the roller coaster or the bumpy road, every organization and every leader is going to face a slightly different scenario. You may be in the lucky position where your CEO, your board, your C-suite is already on board about this change, and you have the full backing of the executive team to drive it forward. Then your resistors may be more at middle management level. You may be, on the other hand, in an organization where the push for sustainability is really coming from employees, from hiring, retention. These are employee engagement tools, and employees are expecting that a company is taking a stand on this issue. And so it's part of your job to really push the issue onto the C-level agenda. One of my proudest moments at Accenture was when the former CEO, Pierre Nanterre, approved the first renewable energy target for the company after months and years of pushing for this type of a real marker of the commitment of the company. And this turns out to have been a big journey on his path, and something that towards the end of his life, he actually passed away, sadly, while in office. And this was something that was important for him to leave as a legacy. And this is not an uncommon topic for senior leaders who have children, have grandchildren, who are looking to the future and are thinking, how am I going to be sure to leave the planet somewhat better off than the way I found it? And to think that way is one way to connect with senior leaders. Yeah, I could go on, but let's see how we want to steer the conversation.
No, absolutely. That's such a relevant link that I see, right, to purpose and kind of the segue to what we concocted, right, when you joined Excellent and we started putting our heads together in that meeting of the minds about
Yeah.
wow, how linked is this to your own personal purpose? You talked about the legacy that a leader wanted to leave behind,
Yes.
a vision for the future. You yourself, you started with your own motherhood, right? So it's really close to the heart. And so now the challenge is bringing that purpose to life, right? It's not
Yes.
just talk, it's not just saying it, it's actually bridging that say do gap that you called it that way. And I fell in love with that expression. So maybe you can explain to people at large, how does this purpose in action approach that we are bringing to the market differ from traditional sustainability strategies or campaigns out there, or what's the difference with this particular approach?
Yeah, so what makes excellence purpose to innovation practice unique is that it's a people first approach. So when we look around the world these days, we sense that we're not on track as a global community to reach these big goals, the 2030 goals, and the alphabet soup of goals that have been set around the world. And yet um, there's an opportunity as a sustainability innovation leader to be on the front lines of changing the narrative. So I firmly believe that it's our role to change the narrative for people from the fear and the sense of it's all just too big and too scary and too overwhelming. I don't even know where to start, to, well, it is big, but I am equipped with the skills and the knowledge and the mindsets and the resources and the networks to be one of the problem solvers and to um, bring together people to be part of that change that we want to see in the world. And so excellence, purpose, innovation, practice, it's all about turning on the lights for people wherever they are in an organization and across an ecosystem, through action learning platforms that really build those skills. These platforms can be innovation challenges where you bring your clients together to tackle big strategic sustainability challenges such as the future of net positive water, or the future of climate resilient communities, or the future of sustainable consumption. And you bring employees along the journey to compete to see who has a more viable idea to take that forward with cross-sector leaders. Or whether it's an accelerator, like at the moment I'm working with the World Bank. We've created the first ever World Bank Youth Innovation Accelerator for water solutions on the new climate reality. And out of 1,600 applicants from across the low and middle income countries across the global south, there are now 20 amazing aquapreneurs who are in this accelerator learning how to take their water solutions, some water tech solutions, some new water business models forward with a network of experts, water tech CEOs, investors, and other World Bank experts who can help to mentor and equip these amazing young people with the skills to scale up their new ideas. Or whether it's a brain trust, for example, at 374 Water, where I was leading up sustainability and ecosystems last year, we created a brain trust around PFAS, forever chemicals. What is the future of forever chemicals that we want to see in the world? And by bringing together cross-sector leaders from government to the private sector to the third sector and regulators, we could map out what's the front line and the frontiers, and where do we need to see innovation and investment to move the field forward and drive adoption of new technologies that will be safer for ourselves and the next generation. So all these different methods of innovation are tools that sustainability leaders can use and can bring into their organizations with this people first mindset, because fundamentally what we need to do is bring people in our organization along the journey as problem solvers to really tackle these big, huge challenges, and to do it with that can-do mindset. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's so inspiring. I love those examples, like those specifics, right, of projects and youth leaders, and like really quite innovative. So this is the overlapping part of a Venn diagram between sustainability and innovation, right? And there it's really putting the human in the center of these initiatives. It's so inspiring. And I love what you say, that the effectiveness of this approach is actually due to bringing people along in the journey. Because how many times, right, those strategies seem to be thought up in a remote laboratory or boardroom or desktop, right? But really getting people on board with you in this journey is the key. And I love that you chose Excellent to walk the next leg of the journey together.
Yes.
Our
Yes.
approach on culture and really shifting mindsets. That's our bread and butter. And you're just bringing, let's say, a nice flavor of jam on top of that transformational journey.
True that. Yeah, this is why I wanted to join you in the journey ahead, because together we come at this issue of driving people first change from two different sides, from kind of a broad lens of changing mindsets to a more targeted lens of changing mindsets on the topic of sustainability and on driving measurable results in sustainability. And the reason why this issue, this topic that I'm bringing forward is relevant today is because in the sustainability world, there's a lot of pushback at the moment. You see fears of greenwashing, questions about companies that have made these really big goals for 2030, for 2050, and maybe they're pulling back from those goals, or maybe employees can see that the company may not be on track to reach those goals. And so the question is, how do we turn that situation on its head? How do we enlist, everyone in our networks and organizations and ecosystems on the path to solving these problems? And how do we enlist people in being part of that problem-solving change? And so these platforms are really designed to do just that. I'm a firm believer in action learning. One of the things that is a common cause with the Excellence team and yourself, because action learning goes way beyond classroom learning, and it says, in order to drive the change and be part of the solution, I need to understand the skills and the mindsets inside of myself. I need to, be the change. That great
starts with you, right?
Starts with you, and that's what really touched me in this Imagine experience last week. Because just like many excellent action learning programs, the change journey was really clearly starting with the individual. What do I need to let go of? What is my new story? How am I going to be that change leader and really harness the energy and the positive energy that I see all around, and not worry about the negative energy and the blockers and the naysayers that are holding me back, but confidently and courageously, joining a collective to move forward and really change the narrative, show that the say-do gap, can be overcome.
Right. And in your experience, how come people are holding back? Sometimes you talked about naysayers, you talked about greenwashing, and there are skeptics all over, and maybe even cynics, right? With these very well-intentioned initiatives. How can we prove that this is authentic? Have you tried anything specific that the audience can learn from about, overcoming the skepticism by really, baking in authenticity so that not just employees, but the stakeholders at large of an organization can perceive these initiatives as genuine?
So there's two sides to this. One is, what can an organization do to signal the authenticity externally and internally? And then there's, what can a leader of a team or a network or a part of an organization do? So the kind of different tools. At the organizational level, I have seen the power of setting these big goals that are very measurable and continuously reporting on them. So there is a situation right now where some companies have set big goals, changed them, pulled back, and that feeds the fear and the skepticism when that happens. However, there is a reason to set these sticky goals. The man on the moon goals, when you have that image of a janitor in NASA, when President Kennedy walked by him in the hall and said, "What are you doing to, what's your job?" And he said, "My job is to put a man on the moon." When you can connect anybody's job in an organization, in a big organization, to a really North Star goal or a big hairy goal, that there's a lot of power in that. It signals to people that there's a greater purpose, and it signals to your partners, to your suppliers, to your customers, to your ecosystem that you're committed to that. And if one does, as an organization, set these big goals, it's critical to put in all the steps and the investments and the actions to do right and to complete and achieve those goals. And that's, if you can do that authentically and clearly, and sustainability reporting is a big part of this, to continuously show how you're tracking against those goals, to explain when it's difficult, when there have been setbacks. COVID, was a setback in many ways for achieving different types of goals. It was an accelerator of certain things like the adoption of digital technologies, but it was also perhaps a setback of things like energy consumption, in the sense that the more digital technologies there are, the more energy is being consumed. And so that's part one about organizational tools linked to goal setting and tapping into people's purpose that way. As a sustainability leader in an organization, if let's say you're leading a 50-person, 100-person team across a global organization, and you have networks of sustainability leaders in all different product lines, in all different regions or countries of the world, when you're in that role, change maker tools include essentially the three rules of human motivation. There's really three things you can do, three levers to pull as a leader in an organization, and this is no different for a sustainability leader. First of all, you have the carrot. So when you can provide real incentives, when you are able to link executive managers' goals to that big hairy goal of the organization and provide true financial incentives to hit those goals, whether they're about renewable energy or whether they're about societal change or whatever is relevant, decarbonizing the supply chain of a company, etc. And that's the carrot. And employees notice that. You really notice what's in your annual scorecard and what you're being evaluated on when it's time for your compensation, for your bonus. This makes it very real. The second is the stick. So the stick is when there's some kind of a punishment when you don't reach those goals, and it doesn't have to be a significant thing, but it can be reputational. So, for example, when I worked in a big consulting firm, we created a dashboard, red light, green light dashboard on 5 key metrics, and that dashboard was for all the countries, all the country managing directors. How far has that country team gone towards adopting these main sustainability pillars in their organization, whether it was supply chain, whether it was community investment, whether it was employee engagement, etc., renewable energy. And in that sense, you're playing also to like people's competitive spirit. So if you're leading one country A and country B is getting a green light on this and being celebrated, in a leadership international leadership meeting, maybe you don't want to be red on the scorecard, so you start asking some questions. Why are we red on this particular scorecard, and what can we do to turn green? So that's how to leverage the stick in a sense in an organizational context, providing incentives, but also tapping into that competitive spirit. And the third is the magic of purpose. So when you can unleash people's natural purpose, they will go above and beyond to contribute to the change process. And we've seen that time and again with initiatives like an innovation challenge, an accelerator, a competition, green teams, these types of things where it's pretty much voluntary to take place in this. You may be rewarded, essentially, you may get a halo effect by being part of a big corporate initiative, that it's really about tapping into the person's purpose. And when you do that, you find that people will, who care about that, will go above and beyond and start to be very creative and bring their whole creative self into tackling these challenges. So those are 3 tools that a sustainability leader has to activate and mobilize people around them.
Yes, this circles back to our own broader approach on how to change cultures, right? And precisely many of the systems that you talk, about incentivizing certain behaviors, about fostering accountability for the lack of results that we committed to, right? So authentic commitments that we really value, and not just pay lip service to. And you talked about the higher purpose, all tenets of conscious business as we know it at Axelant. So it's really a very nice new perspective of changing culture to drive innovation towards sustainability goals. Because many times those hairy goals, if they are financial, probably organizations have mastered that craft, and or at least have trained, right? They have a curriculum of having trained for that path. But the non-financial goals, Lisa, I guess that's the most challenging part of it, or the novelty of it for many of the leaders. At least I know that for me, that would be one of the novelties, right? Of how do I mark goals that are smart for non-financial aspects, right? So let's turn to stories. Let's bring these to real life stories that you have a plethora of anecdotes or cases, right, that you've seen. So can you share like a real life example of how you've involved employees in sustainability initiatives that have caused societal and business impact, something that, like proven results, right? Not just nice and wishful thinking initiatives that you never know what the impact was. Is there a story that you can share?
Sure. So one story that comes to mind was a sustainability innovation challenge that was created at the firm I worked in before. And the first step in that challenge was to identify sponsors, corporate sponsors, to be part of it. So we went and found 10 clients, important clients for the company, who were leaders in sustainability. And we went to them kind of one by one through the account teams. And we said, tell us what's one big sustainability topic where you want to be seen as a leader, as an innovative leader on the front lines of tackling this challenge, and something that's core to your business growth and something that's not fully solved yet. Bring us your wicked challenges. That was step one. And so different companies came forward with different topics. I mentioned a few of them before, like the future of net positive water for a water company, or the future of energy, green energy for an energy company, or the future of climate resilient communities for an insurance company, or the future of sustainable consumption for a big retail brand. So we started with the big challenge. Second, we brought together a brain trust of cross-sector leaders who were really on the front lines of defining and shaping the solutions to that challenge, because I feel very strongly that it's important to not reinvent the wheel when you're doing an innovation challenge, but to really start at the front lines. So we spend some time with a dozen cross-sector leaders in each topic that we brought around those companies. And we said, where is the front line, and where do we need to see investment and innovation in order to push the boundaries and push the frontiers? And two things happen. One is that by bringing together cross-sector leaders, so I'm talking about scientists and entrepreneurs and corporate leaders and regulators and government elected officials who are tackling tackling one of these big challenges. First of all, the group starts to see things a little bit differently, because you start to listen to the other perspectives. And we're all in silos. As much as we want to drive systems change, and as much as we realize that in order to create the future that we want to see, we're going to need different perspectives and different actors at the table. But it's hard. We're all incented to to do the thing that works for our own organizations. And so sometimes it's hard to step out of that role. But when you're in a group, a really curated global group of people who see the same issue, but from multiple different perspectives, you start to get a new vision, an expanded vision. And so together with these brain trusts, we were able to say, here are the 3 areas in the topic X, such as the future of net positive water, where we really need to see innovation. And if we did, that would start to change the game here. Then we took these challenges to consultants in the company, and 5,000 people, signed up to create solutions to these challenges, and that was really exciting. Flowering of activities. This was coming right on the heels of COVID. This is about 1.5 years into COVID, and people were hungry for opportunities to connect to these bigger purposes. This was entirely virtual campaigns. Everybody was doing this with, at their desk, connecting with colleagues around the world. People would self-form teams, come together with a minimum number of people and come up with a solution. And there was a process to go through to learn how to make your pitch, to look at different business models, and to really dive deep into those pathways that had been identified by the Brain Trust. And then the teams were ultimately judged and selected between the Brain Trust members and the company and the consulting firm leaders, and teams would be selected to move into an accelerator. And in those accelerators, amazing things started to happen, because we would either find solutions that the company, the sponsoring company, could take forward one way or another, or we found new kind of services, business lines, offerings that the consulting firm could take forward. And so it was a way of creating solutions and problem solvers from the source of the challenge all the way through to action.
That's amazing, and it's really inspirational. The thing is that here's the skeptic in my mind. And by the way, I'm monopolizing all the questions because I'm just fascinated by all the wealth of not just knowledge, but also actual experience that Lisa brings. But I remind the audience that feel free to drop in the chat box or the Q&A box your own questions, because we will make time at the end of this webinar before we wrap up to give you your questions the opportunity to be answered by Lisa. But the thing is that I was telling you this little skeptic or devil's advocate is coming up, right? And saying, yeah, this is very nice, and yes, long-term goals, that's fantastic, but I am being measured by the quarter, right? So here's the eternal dilemma of any leader of any organization, for profit and non-for-profit. But I guess you've experienced, right, that dynamic tension between short-term results versus that long-term beautiful dream, right? So how do you do that? How do organizations balance the need for immediate business results and just addressing those long-term sustainability goals?
Yes, great question. So it comes down to understanding, to the sustainability leader, understanding what is the currency, what are the rules, the incentives in that organization, and how to connect the dots between what runs that company and what you can provide on these action learning journeys that I'm describing. So in the example of a consulting firm, if a consultant is seen to be contributing to the progress of one of the most important clients of that consulting firm, and if through the whole process of the competition, the client starts to look at the consulting firm in a new light and see the innovative powers of the people who rose up to be part of that competition, you start to get at the real value, like real business value for the two parties in the room, and consultants who are put in front of clients in a completely different context than you would if you were on an engagement with that company, and you have a chance to shine and bring innovative ideas forward with the company. That can be a game changer for employees in terms of their own skill building, in terms of retention of those employees, and offering aligned opportunities for those employees to get in front of clients. And on the client side and the consulting firm side, it's a chance to build deeper relationships with and unlock new relationships in that context. So all those value points are relevant to a consulting firm. That was where I was practicing sustainability. If I was in a different type of a company, there might be a different sort of value structure, and it might create and architect a different type of action learning platform that would hit those really real value levers for the employees, for their managers, for the client account managers, and for the clients themselves.
Yeah, so translating it to our jargon, it would be like, I'm hearing you say that it's key to understand the current culture in order to be able to strike the right balance, right? And not just in business terms, but also in relational terms and personal terms, right? And that's the framework that Excellent uses a lot as a foundational framework: the I, the we, and the it. So the I personally, the we, the relationship you talked about that flourished as a result of this, and also the it, because there are business results that can be measured, and at some point you're making tangible the intangible. And when we work in culture, just to weigh in our perspective on this one from what we've been doing in the past, maybe not so much the innovation part that you bring, but the traditional work on culture is a distinction that we offer our clients, which is polarity thinking, right? We did not invent or coin the term, but it's about immediate business results and long-term business results, the sustainability goals. They are not an either or. How can we think in a way that both are true at the same time? And it's not a problem to be solved. It's not one or the other. We don't solve for one of the variables. There are two ends of like two poles. That's why it's called polarity thinking. And it's not a problem to be solved. It's a polarity to be managed. So it's great that we can bring these distinctions as we work on sustainability, innovation, and bringing our purpose to action and bridge the sage gap. I love how we can marry our ways of looking at the problem and addressing it, right? So what are
what you said? What you said really, let me just respond to what you said, and then the next question here.
Sure.
What you said really resonates in this sense of marrying the short-term needs and the longer-term needs. And the way I see it, the sustainability leader's magical power is to always be looking for that win-win. So being acutely aware of the value to the multiple stakeholders, to the employees, to the relationship, the I, the we, the it, at all these different levels, and to really understand, what does value look like? What does success look like in the shoes of each different member of the puzzle in that organization? And then to creatively construct platforms that will be win-win-win for all stakeholders. And of course, when it comes to sustainability, you have these other stakeholders that sit there. You can say society, you can say the planet, you can say nature, these stakeholders that are much bigger than any of us and that are harder to see, but you want to always be solving for all the different stakeholders. And to me, that's one of the most critical skills, fundamental skills of a sustainability change maker, and really a beautiful thing to do. And it brings out a person's creativity when you start to see world from, from all the different stakeholders' shoes, and you create these win-win solutions.
Yeah. And that's the whole point. If you don't see it, it's you have to really raise people's consciousness and awareness, and
Yes.
maybe question the lens through which they are seeing things. And so mindset shifts, like moving from the victimhood of, oh my gosh,
Yes.
this is catastrophic, doomsday, and it's with that threatening tone, and move from victim to player. What can we do about it? Who can we ask and become a learner, right? How do we
Yes.
put together the best brain trust to see things differently from how we've seen them up to now, right? Now, you said at the beginning, Lisa, that change is your friend in this type of intervention, right? In these initiatives. And we know from experience, working on culture for 20 plus years, change is
Yes.
hard. Change is very hard. And there are pitfalls in the journey to change. So
Yes.
what are the most common pitfalls that organizations can find, so that they're aware, that we can make them aware of that? And what are the risks of not aligning sustainability incentives with business outcomes? What are the perils so that people can avoid them?
Yes, this is a really important topic to get to the bottom of, because change makers will always face resistance to change, and change makers will always activate those naysayers if they fall into these perils. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the most obvious perils is something that's come up a couple of times, which is when you set these big goals as an organization, if you do it on a dream and a prayer, in this current reality, it was probably fine about 10 years ago when, when the sustainability movement was really picking up speed. But now in the current environment, if you're setting goals that there's not a clear path to achieving, you're opening the door to skeptics and critics and people just to be disillusioned about
Mm-hmm.
the commitment that the company is really making, that the leader is really making. So it seems even more important in this day and age to be able to set goals that have a pathway to completion. It's okay to have a stretch goal that will motivate people to go above and beyond and to be creative and to find those solutions. But it's really important to be realistic about what's possible and not just look for a great headline and then think that people will forget about that headline tomorrow. Actually, no, people don't forget. They read the headline, they're inspired, and then if they see that the company isn't actually moving in that direction, then that creates a lot of criticism and skepticism, and that is the say-do gap. So it's about strategic goal setting and clear-eyed goal setting, where you're doing it in order to galvanize and to create that man on the moon moment, but to do it in a way that you can sustain it, and also to be honest when you set those goals. If it is a stretch goal, to say that this is a stretch goal. We know we can get halfway there. We don't know how we'll get the other halfway, and we want to enlist you, our ecosystem, our partners, in going that extra mile with us. And that can be a great reason for a company to get behind one of these internal or even external innovation challenges. For example, I have been a judge with X Prize on the reskilling challenge, and in that challenge, companies came forward. A big hotel chain came forward and said, "If you bring me these reskilling solution pathways, I will test this with my employees in that large hotel chain and see if it works or not." And so there's different ways for companies to engage and be part of the solution path, and being clear when we're setting goals is really important, because that's probably the most greatest peril and risk that people have, is to incite skepticism, disillusionment, sense of greenwashing, all this type of thing.
Yes, and it sounds like it takes really a level of consciousness. You cannot just do this on autopilot. You cannot do this how you've always done every other thing before, because you know, that's the whole case we're making with sustainability innovation. We cannot treat it as any other business item on our agenda. It's something different. So, what advice would you give organizations? And I'm mindful of the time, and we want to give way to questions from the audience. But if there was something that, you know, our audience can take away, is what advice would you give them on where to start their journey?
Yeah, I love that. So two thoughts. First of all, in creating the space for sustainability innovation in an organization, the place to start is to become very conscious of the link between the positive impacts that a company can have on society and the negative impacts, to just the things that naturally happen as a course, as a general course of doing business, and to look for the big goals in that intersection, in that space, so that you're really grounded in something that's relevant. Because if a company picks a topic out of left field, like we want to save the whales, and it has nothing to do with the company that's very landlocked, for example, and it already raises a lot of red flags that doesn't seem authentic. It doesn't seem to make sense. You want to pass the sniff test when you set these big goals, and when you think about where to act and where to take action. And so that's on the one hand. On the other hand, the really important thing to think about at the beginning of the journey is just that sustainability and change is a journey. And so be ready to go for that journey. Next week, I'm going to be walking on the Camino de Santiago with a group of purpose-driven women leaders who are charting their own personal paths. And it's all the metaphor of the journey. So as a sustainability leader, realize that there's a big roller coaster ahead, and don't be surprised when you get resistance. Don't be surprised when you get some kind of pushback. Just be prepared for that. So start with yourself. The phrase "put on your oxygen mask first." Learn how to be really centered and confident and clear about the journey ahead, and realize that a sustainability leader's path is to be taking people on a journey, and to really prepare. Get the right boots. You want waterproof boots if you're going to go to a rainy place. So
right. And embrace your vulnerability. How many times, like, okay, hi, you are now officially in charge of the sustainability challenge, and this urge, at least mine, right? And please don't judge me for this, but the thing, oh, I have to know everything about this. I need to learn, but I need to prove to everyone that I'm fit for this job, and I have to appear as super competent. And I mean, many of these things I have no idea. And that's okay to admit it, to embrace that we cannot know it all, that we're here to learn, not to prove that as a sustainability leader, I already know it all. So it's kind of counterintuitive especially when you're in the field of consulting where you were, right? So how did you embrace curiosity? I know you're an academic learner by heart, but right, how do you open up other stakeholders, right, to the curiosity and to being okay without knowing the destination is there, but that's not the point. It's the journey. How have you convinced people to embrace that vulnerability, Lisa?
Well, maybe I have, maybe I haven't, but I can say that personally, at my core, I'm a very curious person, and I ask a lot of questions. And as a leader in an organization, over time, I learned that it wasn't as motivating when I had all the answers with my teams. It was much more motivating when I would ask questions, whether they're leading questions or genuine questions, and let people come forward. I'm sure I didn't do a great job at that all the time, because I grew up as 25 years in the same company, starting as a strategy analyst, where you're really being paid to figure out the answer very quickly and to be very confident about it. And so I had to have my own mindset shift. In fact, I can remember one of those 360 reports that I received from my team one day that said something along the lines of, we need you to stop telling us what to do, but to start setting those big visions, you know, the man on the moon visions, and also explaining to us why that's the vision, because we could be going over there, but why are you saying we're going over here? How does that link to our corporate strategy? Why is that relevant for this company at this time? And do more of the vision thing, and let, you know, kind of let the teams figure out how to navigate through that maze, and be there to support, have your back, you know, never throw anybody under the bus. But those are some of the lessons that I learned as I, you know, advanced in my own personal leadership journey.
Yes, absolutely. Part of the core curriculum of conscious business at Excellent is rewiring our mindsets. You know, the mindsets that brought us here are not necessarily the ones that can serve us best in our journey towards sustainability, right? So thank you for that. There is time now for some questions. There's one question from the audience so far. Let me read that to you. What are some of the key skills and mindsets, speaking of, that employees need to develop to become effective problem solvers in sustainability?
Great question. I love that. So when we actually did research on this very topic several years ago, maybe 8 years ago, and we created this thing called the Social Innovators Guidebook. And it was based on doing interviews with all kinds of change leaders in cross-sector, and honing that down to a list of skills and mindsets that are needed to be a change maker in an organization, a sustainability change maker. And these skills included things that we've been talking about here today, things like how to influence people, how to convey your ideas clearly and confidently, and how to do stakeholder management, how to really put yourself in the shoes of the stakeholders around you and ask those questions so that you uncover the value points for that stakeholder, and start to have the tools, have the information so that you can construct these win-win constructs that will help you move the ball forward. And on the mindset side, these are things that won't surprise you, but things like optimism, in terms of seeing the glass as half full, because there will always be some rainy day and some dark cloud moments, and you need that sense of okay, well, yes, we can figure out our way through this. It's not a total disaster. There's also the grit and the persistence. We talked about the journey ahead. And so noticing that, just knowing fundamentally that driving change in an organization on these topics that are hard for some people to see and to embrace, and where there will be pushback, just knowing that that's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So train for the marathon in terms of your mindset and your skill set. Be prepared for that. These are some of the critical areas.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that, Lisa. And, you know, for anyone listening to the recording who is right now live with us, you don't need to walk this journey alone. And that's the whole point, right? I'm not sure if the more the merrier, but, you know, you have to be selective of, you know, that people are equipped to go on this journey with the right mindsets, with the right skill sets, with the, you know, the North Star, pointing at the same North Star. But yes, it doesn't have to be a solo journey. We're all in this together. Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing the wealth of your knowledge, the distinctions, the innovative approach to narrowing the say-do gap in terms of sustainability. Thank you for the inspiration today, and for everyone who joined us. You will receive the recording of this webinar. You will also receive highlights and a follow-up survey asking you, what else do you want us to talk about in this beautiful business of raising consciousness in the world of work? So we appreciate you dropping by. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Anabel. Bye-bye.